before we continue, I'd just like to introduce the rest of my team. Directly to my right here is one of our developers, Hans Shafrag. To his right is our team lead, Ian St. Pierre, and to his right on the podium is another developer, Nicholas Corcoran. And our client is Daniel Avila, who works with Newink, but he is a volunteer for the Club Mandaries, SSX Sacramento, and he proposed this project to us as a community outreach, and we were very happy to be able to be part of this project. So a little bit about the feast. So the Club Mandaries has this event every August called the Feast of the Blessed Sacrament, where over the course of the 4 days, there could be 400,000 people that come and attend this event. So currently, it covers an entire city block in New Bedford and is run completely by volunteers. So part of these volunteers' job is to check in these guests as they come to the event because there is alcohol served on this premise. So they do check in to ensure that people can have the correct wristbands if they are 21 or 35 or older, or flag the user or flag the guest if they are of not legal drinking age. So the current system that they have are a bunch of old hardwired PCs that are pretty slow and clunky in the small space that they have available to them for checking in. So what we aimed to improve with our project was we wanted to take the burden off of these volunteers that are doing the check-in. So we weren't sure what kind of technical background they had with them, so we wanted to make sure that our system stayed as simple as possible. We also wanted to speed up the check-in process to ensure that guests are spending all their time enjoying the event and not spending their time waiting in line to be able to check in. With this, we made our system completely wireless as opposed to what they have currently, and we also wanted to have our application check the age of each guest as they come into the event, and also check to see if the license that they're using to check into the event has been used to check in before. So no license can be used for more than one person. So our application we developed using React Native, and if you don't know what React Native is, it was developed by Facebook in 2015, so it's fairly new, and the main feature of it is that you can write code once and it will be able to run on both iOS and Android platforms. So like React for the web, React Native is written using JSX, which is a combination of JavaScript and an XML-like language. However, unlike React for the web, though, React Native goes through a React Native bridge, which splits the code into Objective-C and Java for iOS and Android devices, respectively. Through this, we can also edit our Xcode project files, Android Gradle files, and Java files to ensure that all devices have the correct dependencies to be able to run our app effectively. So, some of the features of our application, as I said before, we wanted to make sure our user interface was as simple as possible for the varying levels of technical background that these volunteers have. And to store all the data that we gather, we use a built-in React Native storage called React Native Storage. And it stores the guest data as an object on the device locally for a set amount of time, so we currently have it set to 24 hours. And it also stores it on the server side for an undisclosed amount of time for further analytic data that the club will use to gather information about. So to protect the information of these guests, we throw the license data and the street address of each guest through a one-way hash to protect their personal data. So when we save it onto the server, the license number and the street address goes through the one-way hash, which doesn't allow it to be unhashed, so it's just a character of random characters to take it out of plain text. Also, our whole application is done in the back end. So when we submit a new entry, all of these things will occur in the back end, making the volunteers' lives easier, and they have to do as little as possible. So on this submit event, this is where we check for the duplicate entries. We check to see if what the age of the guest is, and we give out banners to let the volunteer know what the status of this guest is. And so for sending our data to and from each of the nodes, we use a client-server data transfer. So as you can see from this chart that we have up here, we have a sender, which is where the new entry is getting put in. And on submit, it sends it to the server where the data is stored, and then the server will send it out to the rest of the receivers to be able to make sure that our guest list is accurate amongst all the nodes on the network, and stays current with the new list. And I'd like to pass it off to Ian for our demo.
All right, thank you, Jake. We're just going to get the devices that we're using up here on the screen. Just plug in this phone really quick. All right. So as we're going through this demonstration, you will see a few banners and a few alert boxes, and I will explain those as they come up. So this first alert box that you see here, it says that there's no ban list detected. I'm sorry, this is not on the screen. So I will just explain a little bit about the application while we're working on the projector. So like I said, there's a few different alerts, a few different banners. One of our alerts is that if there's no ban list sent to the server, there is. This will pop up telling you that there is no ban list. So we can click OK to dismiss that for now, and we'll show how to enter the ban list later on. Before we go ahead and actually enter in some data here, I do just want to go over the UI. So like we said, we don't know the technical background of these volunteers, so we want to make sure that they're not doing a bunch of crazy input. All they're doing is entering in the data that's normally found on the license, pressing the submit button. And if we scroll down here, you will see that we do have a camera view, and this is for taking a picture of the guest, which we'll get into later in the presentation. So I am lucky enough to be the first person entered into the feast for this year. So Nick is going to be our volunteer, and he's going to be checking me in. So I'm going to give him my license, and he's going to enter in some of my data. This is not actually my license number because I don't want to show that all to you. But while we're entering in this data, this is all going to be facing the user, so nobody else will actually be able to see some of this data. So I'm going to explain what should happen while Nick is entering in the rest of the data. So once we fill all these in, he can click the next button on the bottom to go to the next input box. There's a small animation that slides over the labels so that we can actually input the text into the box. Once all these fields are filled in, there's a submit button in that camera field, so we will take a picture of the guest to store that for later analytics. And specifically for this demonstration, I am 21, so there's going to be a green banner that pops up on the top for a couple seconds. And all that green banner means is I've been added to the guest list, and I am of legal drinking age. So I'm just going to take a big smile here. And as you can see, the banner has popped up at the top of the screen, went back up so that we can see that banner. So now I'm excited. I'm going into the event. My buddy Jake here is texting me, said he can't wait. We're gonna have a great time, have a couple beers, eat some food. However, Jake's not gonna turn 21 until after the event. So I think that we can sneak one by on one of these guys, and I can just hand him my license. And he can come over here to Jerry, who's at another booth. And Jerry is going to open the application. And Jerry is going to enter in the same information.
This has never happened, by the way.
Right, of course, this will never happen. So while Jerry is entering in that data, I do just want to go over what should happen here. So as we saw before, the same information was entered in at this booth, at Nick's booth. So when we enter in all the fields and we go to take a picture, the picture actually won't be taken, the data will not be sent to the server, the data will not be saved on the phone. The screen will slide back up and a new red banner pops up. And what the red banner means is that the data hasn't been saved and that that person should not be entered into the event because this license has been used before. So we'll just wait for Jerry to finish up the last couple things here. Lucky enough, me and Jake looked similar, so the person at the booth didn't really think anything else about the license. So when he goes to try and take a picture of Jake, we'll press the submit button here, and it slid back up, and we can see that red duplicate warning. Lucky for Jake, Jerry is a nice guy. He's told them that, I know you're not 21, let's not make this a problem. If you give me your real license, I will let you into the event, you're just not going to be able to drink here. So we're going to erase some of this data. When we're entering this in, again, I'm going to try to explain just because those banners pop up pretty quickly, or for not a lot of time. So once his license number is entered in, all this is entered in, we can take the picture. The picture will get saved. This will enter into our into the phone, into the server, and a blue banner will pop up. So the blue banner is almost like the green banner, except all it says is under 21 guests has been added. So this was not originally a requirement for the project because mainly people who are checking in are going to be 21. But we just wanted to give another visual cue to the users to let them know that this person hasn't been entered in before, but they should not be getting a wristband, so they should not drink on the premise. So Jake's going to give a big smile. He looks great. And you can see that blue banner. Again, on the other side, you will see an alert. So this is pretty much only for the presentation. This is just to show that the data actually is getting transferred and we're not just saying it is. So this is just a visual cue showing that this data did get entered in on this phone. In the background, the data is sent to the server and the server sends it to all the other clients who didn't send the original request. So a couple more things that I want to show out here. So that original alert that popped up right when we started the event saying there's no banned list. This is the website that's hosted on the backend server. It's pretty simple. All it says is please upload the band guest list. And when we click on the button, it opens up our file explorer where we can look for a CSV file. The CSV file has all the same information that we're looking for on the license. So name, date of birth, and the rest of that. When we click submit, it does two things. It sends it to all the connected devices so that they have a copy of the list live, and it also sends it to the server. If a new phone were to come on the network, it would get a copy of the current guest list for that day, as well as the banned guest list. So, just to show this really quickly, we know of a license number that should be a banned guest. And all banned guests is the local police force and the club have a list of people who have either been in trouble at the club or had trouble with the cops, and they're just not going to have, not going to make it a fun time for everybody else in the club. So we don't want to let these people in. So when we go to click submit here, this is our last banner that you should see. This is a black banner, and all it says is ban warning, the guest is banned. So at that point, whoever was checking in that guest could bring over somebody to verify that this person should be banned. Maybe it was a clerical error, but we can get that figured out on the other side. A couple more things I do want to show here. It might be a little hard to see, but there's a few directories here on our server. So we can see that there's a bunch of CSVs. This is all the testing that we've done before, so this is just data entries for guest lists previously. It saves a CSV for each day. And then this is also the lovely picture of myself happy to go into the piece. These are going to be saved for things like verifying that the person on the license actually looks like the person handing their license. Because if you were to look at me and Jake, we do look a little different here. So that is not currently implemented, but the feature is there for later use. And with that, I'm just going to bring it back to the slides and talk about the rest of the technology that we use during this process. Alright, so for source control and documentation, we used GitHub. That's where we did all of our projects. We each had our own branches where we could update specific things and merge them later. Google Drive was mainly where we had all of our documentation. This was a place for us to edit these collaboratively. For team communication, we mainly use Discord and Slack. We had Scrum meetings 3 times a week for about 15 minutes, or as needed if somebody was having a problem with their specific task that week. And for our other Scrum process and project management, we used Trello, where we could assign projects and tasks to each developer. Development tools, mainly across the board, we used Visual Studio Code. This had a lot of tools that were great for us, such as formatting tools and things like that, highlighting. We also use Android Studio, and pretty much the only use for Android Studio is creating Android virtual devices to make sure that it would work on more than 2 devices. We've tested, I believe, up to 25, and it's worked, but we ran out of resources at that point. For languages and frameworks, like we said, the main language was React Native. For the one-way hash, we use a SHA-256 hashing algorithm, so that just saves the hashes the license number as well as the addresses, some of the more personal information in case somebody did get their hands on the data. They wouldn't be able to see some of that. In React Native, we're also able to use just plain vanilla JavaScript. We use things like new date objects to check the age of the guest. Our backend server was created using Node.js and Express, and to actually send the data from the server to the client, client to the server, we used a library called Socket.io. And with that being said, that ends our demonstration. I'd like to open it up for questions.